Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Carol Moulton coming to you once again with Tea Time with Carol. Come on in. Come on in today. We've got I hope something that will be really, really helpful for you. So come in. We've poured the tea today. I don't know if this is a coffee day or if you want to stick with your tea, but we're pouring it. And we've fluffed up the pillows, so we're all ready for you. Um, Today I want to talk with you for not long. I always say that, but seriously, we're not going to be here before you long. But I want to talk for a little bit about triggers. We're living in we thought 2020 was strange. We thought 2021 was difficult. And 2010, 2022, we thought we were coming out of it. But now 2023 is looking just as crazy as the previous years. So I think it's important for us to learn how to manage and how to handle, many of us as people of color learn how to suppress stress, which ends up not being good for us physically or mentally. And one of the things that I think is important for us to do is to learn how to manage stress a little bit better than we have been. That's really important, because I suspect that things are about to get a lot more stressful right now. And so learning how to cope will become more and more and more important. So, with that in mind, I want you to come on in and we're going to unpack for a little bit the subject of triggers. Well, what is a trigger? I'm so glad you asked because we're going to talk about that for a bit. A trigger is anything that sets off your personal alarm system, and it can prompt an emotional or physical or mental reaction or response. It's not always negative. Usually it is, but it's not always negative. But when it is, 9 times out of 10, it's related to something that happened in the past, some trauma that really hasn't been healed. And that's why your body responds to it in the way that it does. It takes you back to whatever the event, whatever it was that happened. And so when you get triggered, you may suddenly be very sad, or you get angry, or there's some anxiety or some other intense emotion. It's like, boom, there's a lightning bolt that took you from, you were la, 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 la going along. And then all of a sudden, you're in this very heightened level of emotion or distress. So today we're going to talk about how to recognize them, and then we're going to talk about how to deal with them. Okay. All right. So, first of all, to recognize them, you got to be self-aware. You've got to be able to stand outside of the emotion and understand where it's coming from. So if all of a sudden you're like over the top angry, you're not just angry. You got to understand, well, why did I suddenly get angry? What the heck? And so you may, if this is like unfamiliar to you, you may want to start keeping a journal with you and start tracking during the day. Well, what's going on? Did somebody cut me off in traffic? Did something unusual happen? But look for patterns. When there's a spike in anxiety, what made you suddenly feel sad? What made you suddenly feel very anxious? If you notice these patterns, when you start keeping track of them, then you can better understand why they're happening. So secondly, you want to identify. Identification is essential. Once you understand the emotional patterns, start identifying what your triggers are. And they can be anything: a place, a person, a date, a song, a smell, or even certain situations. Um, for me, a trick, and this is not a negative one, this is a positive one. Certain smells can be triggering. When I was a little girl, my grandmother always used Jergens hand lotion, and she would let me use it, and I'd ask my mother to buy it and she wouldn't. So the only time I got to use Jergens lotion was when I was at my grandmother's house. And every time I used it, it just felt like special and wonderful, and because I get to use this very special lotion on my grandmother's. And so maybe, I don't know, last year or so, I was in a dollar store and I saw, you know, these little bottles of Jergens lotion, and I bought like a whole bunch of them because I find that when I use them, it triggers me, and I remember those very pleasant memories of my grandmother. I had the most wonderful grandmother in the world. She cooked, she baked, she made watermelon rind pickles. She made the best cakes that I've ever tasted in my life. She made homemade applesauce. I mean, I go on and on and on. She made pancakes kissed by the sun. She was just a wonderful grandmother who always had time to listen, was never too busy. And I knew that I was loved when I was around my grandmother. And so Jergens lotion triggers me into remembering all those wonderful and positive things about my grandmother. But, just be aware of what the triggers are. You may get triggered around certain birthdays or anniversaries. 9/11 is a trigger for some people, because you remember, if you're old enough, you remember what you went through during that time. Looking at the news or media can be a trigger, especially right now. I found years ago, I stopped looking at the news really, but years ago, I found that when I looked at the news, the 11 o'clock news before I went to sleep, I would have very bad dreams. So years and years ago, I stopped looking at the news. That's not to say I don't keep up. I mean, I read, I have subscriptions, I keep up. And there are a number of journalists and attorneys that I follow, but I can't, well, news stopped being news several years ago. It's like gossip and it's opinion, but it's not news. There's a difference. Unexpected changes. If you're a person who's very used to a routine, and that's very important to you that you keep a routine, a sudden change, can be a trigger for you. So, all of these things, just be aware of, what potential triggers, conversations with certain people, certain people that you don't get along with or you have difficulty with, that can be triggering. Your boss can, anything can be a trigger. Literally, anything can be a trigger. But the key is to be aware. So everybody's triggers are different, and that's okay. But what's key here is understanding what triggers you. And then the third step is, after you've done these things, you've kept a journal, you're now aware of, your emotions falling and rising during the day, and you see that it happens, in these particular instances, then you start developing coping strategies. You don't have to be at the mercy of your emotions. You can master them, and you can make a decision to deal with them differently. So, now what strategies? Okay, glad you asked. You can use relaxation techniques. You can use meditation. You can use deep breathing. You can remove yourself, if you're able to, from the trigger. Or you can seek professional help, like with a coach like me, or you can, seek help from your mental health provider, your pastor. I don't really recommend putting this on your friends or relatives. I think sometimes it could be a burden for them. So you may want to try some of these other things before you talk to, you know, before you seek help from somebody you know. That's not really a good idea. But just recognizing and managing triggers is a journey. It's not a destination. So it's perfectly fine to take it one step at a time. If this, if you find it challenging and you don't feel like you're moving along with it fast enough, it's okay. Be kind to yourself. It's just being able to recognizing it is really key. Um, and also recognize that triggers can kind of sneak up on you when you weren't aware, and you may find that you're reacting out of proportion to the situation. And so this can lead to confusion or stress or even damage relationships. If Here's an example. When you're not aware of triggers, somebody can speak to you in a way that you take as offensive or hurtful because you were triggered. And that wasn't what the person meant at all. And so it's important for you to be aware, really get when you're being triggered so that you can respond appropriately. The other thing is when you don't recognize when you're being triggered, you're in a constant state of anxiety. And so if you're having physical manifestations like you have headaches a lot, or you have stomach aches a lot, or your heart palpitations, or any of these things. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I'm not diagnosing you, but external stuff does manifest internally. And so just be aware that your headaches can be rooted in being triggered or in the stress. So um just be aware. And we want to start working to bring the stress level down, because there is too much stress in our lives right now. So you want to handle it not by reacting, but by responding. I hope you get what I mean, because this is like really important right now. So when you're not aware of your triggers, there are three things at least, but three major ways that you can be impacted. One is with your emotional well-being. When you're not aware that you're being triggered, you can be like on an emotional roller coaster, and over time, as I was indicating, this can lead to physical problems or anxiety disorders. That's not cool. Secondly, it can affect your relationships. When you're not aware, and I sort of hinted at this, when you're not aware you're being triggered, you can react very strongly to what's actually an innocent comment or action from a loved one. And that can put strain on your relationships if, you're always fighting and fussing or really upset out of proportion to what's going on, and you end up in a conflict and don't even know how you got there. So when you understand your triggers, you're better able to manage your you can foster healthier relationships, and you're better able to communicate, which is always a wonderful thing. And then thirdly, understanding your triggers helps with your own personal growth. You can avoid situations and opportunities that make you uncomfortable, and just manage um, your own well-being better. You can handle challenges head on, as opposed to looking up and you're in the middle of something and it's like, oh man, how did I get here? So I hope. Oh, let me see. if I'm missing anything. I've got a bunch of notes here. Da, 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 da. Okay, we talked about triggers. We talked about um one of the ways that you can manage triggers when you find yourself in the middle of one is to do some deep breathing. That's something that is not noticeable. Nobody will know that you're doing it. I mean, unless you tell them. But it is a way for you to manage to kind of manage what's going on. And one way to do it, one easy way to do it is uh, to inhale for the count of 4, exhale for the count of 4. Inhale for the count of 6, exhale for the count of 6. And you will find yourself, you know, you'll find yourself a calm coming over you. Then inhale for a count of 8, exhale for a count of 8. And when you get to 8, stay there. You don't have to do 4, 6, 8. You can stay at 4 for a while, stay at 6 for a while. But the aim is to get to 8. And that will help you to manage the anxiety and the stress a lot better. And that will help you to ground yourself. And then, it is, you don't have to keep triggers a secret. I mean, you can talk about them when you feel like you're able to, that you really find this particular situation or dealing with this particular person really challenging and triggering, and that's fine. And when you're doing this, when you're looking to manage your triggers, self-care is really important. So you may want to take more walks or journal. Journaling is like really important, but it would help you to sort of corral your thoughts and emotions, and writing them down, I find to be particularly helpful. And then, of course, practicing mindfulness and meditation, or, find a hobby that you like. I've recently started Pilates, and I find that to be very relaxing. Once I unkink myself, just kidding. Um, Seek professional help. Uh, Therapy can be helpful, but in any event, please keep this in mind as you go forward. Triggers, you don't have to stay there because you're triggered about something. That doesn't mean that it always has to be that way. It is possible for you to manage triggers and manage your emotions, but the key is to be self-aware. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge, and you can't fix what you're not aware of is there. So with that, we're going to, I think, end for today. I really hope that you have found this helpful, and I invite you to give us feedback. You can find us Tea Time with Carol on Facebook. I'm always open to hearing your reactions and your responses. You can send me a private message if you don't want to post it there. And I hope we're going to be doing much more in terms of mental kinds of things that will help you, um, things that will help you manage and de-stress and get on top of things mentally, because there's a lot going on. And it doesn't have to be, you know, like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. We're all gonna die. It's good. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. We've survived this and a lot worse. Trust me on that. We have survived worse. So remember, you are the person that your ancestors prayed for. You are the person, you are the gift, you are the legacy that they prayed for. So just keep that in mind going forward. You know, you're strong stuff. You're made of strong stuff, and we can survive. So with that, we're going to end for today. Um, I pray that you found this helpful and that you're managing to not just survive, but thrive and grow and, help your families and your loved ones as well. And with that, um, just remember that I love you, love you, love you, love you. And until next time, just remember everything you want is on the other side of fear. And with that, we'll see you next time. Be blessed. Take care. Bye bye.